We are still connected to YouTube, but that's fine, Mihir. You can keep your video on now. I'll just quickly introduce you to all these people who have joined us also.
Sure.
So, as you see, most of the students I know here are from mostly live at home, live online group classes.
All these people who have joined us also.
Where is this background noise from? Yeah. So, and a lot of these students are also from personal tutoring, our personal tutoring students. So we have Aarti and Arushi and Aditi and Anusha, Chaitanya Dev, Dhruv, George, Rishabh, Lakshya, Namita, Prithvi, Rachit, Samantha, Sandhya, Sipika, Shailendra, Tanmay, and Vaibhav with us. Many of them probably have been at places, same place where you had been some time back. But they have the same dreams, same goals, same aspirations to get to a good score and have a top college.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I hear a lot of echo. I'm not able to hear what you're saying.
A good score
Are
and
you
have
also hearing me?
um,
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I hear a lot of echo. I'm not able to hear what you're saying.
I think it's the YouTube. Maybe you can stop the YouTube. Am I right?
I think, yeah, now I can hear you well. Okay.
Uh,
And sorry, if you could please repeat the question again. I couldn't get it.
it wasn't a question. I was just telling that so many of our students here are
Yeah,
in the
now I can hear you well. Okay. And sorry, if you could please repeat the question again. I couldn't get it.
it wasn't a question. I was just telling that so many of our students here are
Yeah,
in
now I can hear you well. Okay. And sorry, please repeat the question again.
it wasn't a question. I was just telling that so many of our students. Guys, just this is for all of you. Just give us a minute while Mihir troubleshoots a bit. Mihir is just rejoining. That could be. I'll just text him. Maybe that's the issue. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Rishabh. I'm only hoping he's able to troubleshoot quick. But while he's troubleshooting, I'm also going to share my screen. And while he rejoins, I'll show you his scores so that we are all on the same page in terms of how he moved his scores and what are his percentiles. Or I'll just wait for him to join. Yeah, he's there.
Okay, I think it's better now. Could you speak once?
I hope it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, finally. So Rishabh had pointed out here that probably it's you joined the last session, but still it was active. Maybe that was
Okay.
a issue.
Right,
What I'm
could be.
Yeah, what I'm going to do now, Mihir, just quickly rewind to the whole journey so that people have context here. They already know about the journey. For a quick synopsis, the synopsis they already have, but I'll showcase something. I'm going to screen share.
Okay.
So this screen share represents your final GMAT score that you obtain, which is the 715.
Yeah.
And this marks the 100 percentile on Quant, 94th and 93rd, respectively, on verbal and data insights. This was interesting when both on math and non-math, you haven't scored above 90, but you scored a 93rd here on data insights, and you've scored a 100 percentile on MSR. This is also something that we are going to talk about while we continue our conversation.
Sure.
Students who have joined us, most of them I know by name, I remember by name. They're super, super bright. And as of now, at least for the last 2 weeks, as I monitor, I notice that almost all of them have been extremely consistent with the prep. And those who haven't been, they're also still trying to make sure that they're consistently prepping. But there are still the same moments, the same pain points that you also had in your journey. So that you have gone through the journey and you have been able to score so well from where you were in the 500s to a 715, that journey would give them hope and also may probably answer, I'm assuming, to their satisfaction, the answers to all the pain points that they have from your eyes,
Right.
right? But before we start and before we go there, I'm sure the context is set now. It took me 7 months to get this interview, okay?
Right.
From the time you got the score, then you worked on your applications, then you got the ISB admit. And I was constantly asking, is it possible? When do we connect? When do we get to showcase your achievements to the student and be able to answer their queries? It took us 7 months. Now, I understand that sometimes it's extremely important to not let everyone know of your prep, but how important it was for you to open to the world that this is the scenario, this is my GMAT score, this is my admit, before you actually, why didn't you ever speak of it earlier, or you didn't want the world to know so much about it? Do you think that's important from your lens? What is the perspective around it?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of things that I think played a part in me not sharing about it very openly until I finally had the admit. One of the thing is that when you share a lot, you know that people naturally expect well from you, that you will do well, and that can weigh you down a bit. There can be certain anxiety that oh, I have to do well on the test day, and all those things can come up. And so I just didn't want them to weigh me down on the test day. So that's the reason I didn't try to say, like, talk about it a lot. And secondly, I think I'm also a working professional, so I cannot speak openly about my plans to pursue an alternate career in the company, obviously. So yeah, those two were the main things. But yes, it gets challenging to keep at your preparation while you have a job that becomes demanding sometimes, where you don't have the time to focus on your GMAT. You have an important deliverable to cater to, and because you cannot talk about your GMAT, or even if your test day is tomorrow, you just have to keep doing and put in some extra effort out of the office hours that are actually committed. And also, yeah, there has to be some amount of time that you give to your family as well. You want to know if they're doing well, since many of us have moved out of our hometown for our jobs and everything. So yeah, all these things also play a part. So that's why I decided to not talk about it very openly until I had the admit in hand, and now things are open.
And I absolutely understand, respect that. Your family must be aware of it. Your close friends must be aware of it, right?
Yes.
Though,
Yes.
and that preparation was, the knowledge of that prep was limited to this small circle till
Only
you.
the small circle. Yeah, yeah, obviously, because yeah, it becomes difficult in office to discuss all this. But yeah, your close friends and family, I think, help you. They relieve that pain, like relieve that anxiety instead of adding to it. So it's always good to know that you have that support from your close friends and family. So yeah, they were the ones whom I shared it with, and yeah, not much talking about it in the office or colleagues.
Got it, got it. Now coming to the GMAT part. I'll go straight to the point where I always wanted to ask people who are actual high scorers that many a times, and this comes from a lot of those who haven't really scored very well on the GMAT. Many a times it comes up as GMAT was far more harder than my preparation. It felt completely out of context. I hadn't really seen such kind of questions in the mocks or in my prep. But what was the story with you in your case? Did you feel any of the questions were out of scope? Was there a scenario where you felt like, hey, you know what? It seems familiar, but when I solve it, it just seems like a different territory, or vice versa?
Yeah, so honestly, I did not feel like that much that everything was even some part was out of scope. Well, yes, there were questions that were, disguised in a different manner than you would expect normally to be. Or, obviously, so when you're in a solving mode at your home, sitting comfortably, then your mind works a little differently. You're relaxed, and in the exam, there's also that anxiety that, tries to push you down, or it kind of restricts you to think more freely, as freely you were thinking about it during your preparation phase at home. So I think yeah, coming to your question, I think it's just that your mind becomes a little stressed, and in that you might not see the pattern which you were able to see comfortably when you were practicing at home. So yeah, to in my GMATs, specifically in the one that we are talking about, the 715 score. No, I did not find anything that was very new. Of course, there were questions where I became uncomfortable, and I could see a lot of tricky questions, especially in DI. I remember that there were certain word swaps, right? And very trivial changes in the numbers and decimal points that could, quickly you could click and move to the next question in time pressure, and you would have lost that mark even if you have solved it correctly. So yeah, these kind of things I did notice. So a calm mind will help you. It will not make you feel that something came from the outside. I think if you're going through your official sources properly, I think yeah, you are good to go, and there will not be very much surprises in the exam.
Right. What are the resources that you utilized in your prep through and through?
So coming to resources, I think the Crackverbal portal was where I started, preparation from the videos and all. I used to watch it before we had our sessions of that respective topic. There are also certain questions that you could solve in the portal, which are from official sources. I have very heavily relied on the official sources mostly for most of my preparation. I have used there is the TI question bank that helped a lot. There was the verbal official guide that I have solved a lot of questions. I think for the critical reasoning part, I might have solved almost all of the questions that are there in the verbal official guide. And then yeah, for quant as well, the official guide and the official material help for practice, and for testing obviously the official mocks are like the best resource out there.
Did you use by any chance the old official mocks, which are from the retired classic GMAT questions, which are no longer going to appear on the focus mocks, of course?
Yeah, no, I think only whatever was available on mba.com has been my primary resource. So I think that was not available when I was preparing, right? They had entirely discarded the old
Right.
GMAT.
Before I move forward with my next question, Sandhya has asked, she has congratulated you first. She has asked how many serious months of prep you have given for the preparation, how many hours of daily prep you had, also this is your which attempt. So what attempt was this one on the GMAT?
Okay, so I'll go one by one. So I think coming to the number of serious months, I think we started in March. We started our sessions in March, and somewhere in uh, June mid around, I gave my GMAT, the one with 715. Before that, I had started with a 595, and that was I think around in Jan or December. After which I took a little bit of break, and then I started preparing for GMAT properly.
How many hours of daily prep?
Hours of daily prep, so it was different depending on how demanding the you know my job and daily activities got. So definitely it varied every day. I tried to keep it, but at least 2 hours of focused preparation. And during weekends, it was more like sessions of 2.5 to 3 hours that I used to do. In one sitting, you have to sit for 2.5 to 3 hours, and you have to have those questions in mind that you want to do so that you don't waste your time looking at questions. Before starting the timer for your 2.5 to 3 hours, you have to have that question bank ready that you are going to solve. Yeah, so maybe 2.5 to 3 hours is a good number for you to target per day.
Thank you so much, Mihir. Sarthak, your question is one of my questions also, so please wait for it. I'll ask it and he will answer this question also.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to ask was, did you ever get caught in the loop of perfection? Like if you are, let's say, on a topic like probability for that matter, and you
Mhm.
find that I'm not really doing very well on the easy questions, and you feel stuck there. Do you move on from that point? Did you move on from that point? Was progress your mantra, or did you want to perfect that area? How did you go about that?
So my target was, so quant was a strong section. So if we talk about a quant, then my idea was at least to reach a medium level of every topic before moving on, and not really quitting anything, because I was targeting for a high quant percentile. And we also know that in quant you are penalized more heavily than the other two sections. So yes, in quant, my idea was at least to perfect it to a medium level. Maybe not go to the advanced level of every topic, but at least a medium level of even the difficult topics. The topics that you find difficult, I think, should be targeted in quant.
So here's the thought process I would love to understand because many candidates go through this.
Yeah.
They usually come with this thought process of let me solve more and more harder questions in order to get a very high percentile. What's
Yeah.
your take from the perspective of 595 and from the perspective of 715?
Sure, sure. So yeah, I think that's a very valid point, and I was talking about quant when I spoke earlier because that I wanted to score well in that so that my overall percentile would go high. But if I talk about DI or verbal, and if we talk about those kind of questions which are like 705 plus or 805 plus questions, yes, they are difficult, and I think that you don't need to spend a lot of time on even if you find, like, let's say, a certain topic difficult. I would give an example of MSR, and I struggled with it really for a long time, and you know that. And so with MSR, what used to happen is that I used to be able to read through the passage and all, but one or two questions would go wrong, especially when it's like a table and you have to choose many, like the yes or no on each statement. So that's where one or two used to go wrong, and the accuracy would really mess up on MSR. So on MSR, I decided that I should be able to at least attempt something around 645, 695 at least. Maybe not go very high, but yeah, any question that comes in that range, I should be able to attempt.
Okay, so it wasn't like I have to only solve hard questions in order to get to a high percentile. It was always a
No.
balance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you should progress steadily on your question bank on the official source. You start with very easy questions first so that you have an idea of what this topic is, and you can also gauge to a certain extent that, should I rely on this topic to push my score higher on the D-Day? And you will get a feel of that when you solve those easy questions, and depending on how many of those you can get accurately, you will get an idea of, whether this is your strong topic or weak topic. If you think that it's your weak topic, then you just need to spend a little more time. But I think you should go gradually and not spend a lot of time on the hard questions of any topic.
And I absolutely agree. Uh, from a mentor's point of view, also, we keep on telling to the candidates to not immediately jump on hard questions and not just think about hard questions. You have to ensure that easy, medium questions, you are able to nail them 100%
Yes.
correct.
Yes, that is more important, because I think like no one knows about the algorithms. There are a lot of speculations, but I think one thing that many people agree on, and I'm sure I have heard about it from you as well, that the exam will get progressively more challenging. So if you focus a lot on more difficult questions, and instead you lose sight of the easier ones, then those questions will never be unlocked for which you have prepared so much. So gradually you need to build your pace and ability and skills to solve the tougher questions.
What among the three sections made you feel more challenged, quant, verbal, or data insights?
I think I will say verbal made me struggle a lot initial days, and when I got to do well with verbal, suddenly I started faltering in DI as well, and we had a couple of sessions on that as well, and you know so yeah, verbal most struggling, and second was DI.
Verbal and data insights. I think, again, from a mentor's perspective, and we have also been talking about it, your quant skills, your verbal skills together reflect on data insights with DI strategies, which are very specific to the formats of the questions. Now, you also prepared for data insights extensively and you scored very well on data insights also. Do you think non-math DI, which is also not given too much talk or people do not talk too much about it, but what was your experience with non-math data insights prep? Did you feel challenged by it?
Yes, I felt challenged by it. I found the math DI far more easier to crack than non-math. I have struggled with non-math a lot, but once you get your verbal right, I think you get your non-math DI right also. It's just a matter of time. So I would suggest that there are a good number of questions. I think 7 to 8 we can expect in GMAT on non-math DI maybe. And then therefore yeah, I did give it some time, I because I couldn't ignore that. So initially I focused on my verbal preparation. Once it got to a higher level, I naturally noticed that I am able to solve the non-math DI questions as well in during the mocks. So yeah, getting your verbal right is very important, and then eventually it's just a skill that you get with practice, the non-math DI part.
Got it. How did you analyze data insights question? When it comes to quant, we can always say look at multiple approaches, look at trap answer choices. What about data insights? What was your process of analyzing them? Specifically the non-DS question. Even on data sufficiency, there can be proper analysis. But what about the rest of the formats?
So you're talking about analysis during I was attempting the paper, right?
After the attempt of in a practice session, when you
Okay.
attempt say MSR and TPA and graph or tables, what was your metric of improvement which you take away from that practice session for data insights?
Yeah, okay. So I think when you look at the solution, you realize that this was an easy one, or whether it was a medium one or a difficult one. And I think what I took with me is that any type of question where I'm not doing in the easy, when I'm not able to get the easy question correct, that is a more serious problem than if I'm not able to get a hard question correct on that skill. So the more serious problem I used to tackle first means, if I used to find out that okay, let's say in data sufficiency I'm not able to do the easy questions, I was not able to do in today's mock, then that means I really need to work on my data sufficiency. So yeah, depending on that, I used to analyze whether and in the practice session on the official website as well, I think we get that right, whether it's an easy question, medium, or difficult. You filter by easy and then you look at your accuracy. And I think, yeah, ma'am, you also specified how many I need to get correct, right, in the easy section. And, so that was a metric. So if I'm getting less than that, then that really means I need to work upon that skill more.
Understood.
And yeah, and then you have to worry less about questions that were hard and you were not able to get. So that should be your last priority, and your first one should be the ones that were easy and that you couldn't get.
Yes, absolutely agree. If I narrow it down to, let's say, one of the most common pain points of candidates, which is MSR, where you scored 100 percentile, um, did you find MSR to be hard? And if you,
Yes.
and what was your method of honing your MSR skills?
Sure, sure. I can talk about that. So MSR is something that I have faced the maximum challenge in data in the DI section. And so with respect to that, I mean, honestly, when I went to the GMAT, I was praying that I just got one MSR and not two. But after I finished my first MSR, I got another MSR. So I was very, I had become very anxious when I saw the second one because I didn't want it at all. But yes, so things are like MSR has not been a comfortable topic at all. It was never one. But I did notice, like in the mock that I gave before my D-Day, I did have a very good score in MSR. So it was, and before that, that's what when I had focused my, energy on MSR that I need to do well in this section. So I think first part with MSR is you really need to be quick in understanding what is being given. And secondly, you need to know the most important data points that are mentioned. I think at CV we follow the process, right, where we are quickly making a mind map of the MSR questions. So that helped a lot. I didn't do MSR without making a mind map ever. So because the questions are long and you cannot afford spending time looking at the MSR text again because there are three tabs, three or two, and therefore doing back and forth on data is not a good idea. So I used to jot down the important points and then really read very carefully what is asked. Many of the times the mistakes that I made in MSR were, silly mistakes because in the pressure of time, and especially you want to give less to MSR because you always feel that this anyway I'm not going to be able to get it. So you give even more less time. You want to finish it early, and so you sacrifice the accuracy which you should not do in MSR. So making the mind map and going through calmly all the questions and all the options. Uh, Try to see if there's any a trick there, and carefully avoiding that was key for me to get through MSR.
Perfect. And you used official material, which is the DI bank and
Yes.
platform materials for MSR practice. And you got like what, 6 questions? If it's two sets, 6 to 7 questions of MSR, correct?
Yes.
So what I want to tell all the people here who are already preparing for the GMAT, see, it's doable. It's doable. You just have to like pick up the words that Mihir said now, be calm, be focused, and make your notes, mark the keywords. MSR is just another format of presenting data to you, challenging your cognitive ability to manage cognitive load. That's MSR for you. So it's very doable. If somebody has done it, you can also do it. Before I move to the next question, Chaitanya has asked a very interesting question. Chaitanya has congratulated you, Mihir, and has asked that he's coming after a break and GMAT looks much harder today. So, how did you restart your preparation basically from 595
Right.
preparation? And how did you practice after break? Do you resolve those questions, or you choose new sets?
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting question, and I did feel that as well. So even during, of course, there was the phase where I got 595, then there was a break, and that's when I seriously started. But even when I seriously started, I had to go to a trip with my family somewhere, and that's where I lost like 5 6 days of 5 6 days of prep time during that. But what helped me come back on track is whenever I used to learn in our sessions, I used to make notes of it, whatever question was solved or whatever formula or trick that was told, right? And when I used to read through that, that whole lecture used to go through your mind, and that's where you get that refresher. So it's like a lecture revision in a very short time. If you have made the good notes during your session, I think they are very helpful. They help you remember everything. So definitely you'll not be able to start at the same level where you left, but you'll start somewhere lower than that. But spend more time learning than solving in the initial phase after your break, and then get back to solving at the same pace as you were earlier. So yeah, if you're taking a break, please give some more time to revise the level that you were before starting with solving vigorously again.
Chetan, I hope that answers your question. You have to put in that work and walk step by step. Is this is in summary, that's what Mihir wants to say.
Yeah.
I also see Samantha Gupta. Oh, Samantha, one of my favorite students, asking a question that on your verbal section, how did you manage time? How did you do all the questions on the exam or focused only on, say, 18, 19? Did you focus on just 18, 19 of the 23 verbal questions, or did you focus on everything?
Yeah, so I think this is a very interesting insight that I got during my preparation and while I was doing my mocks. So, when you say that, did you do all the questions on the exam? So the answer is no. The timer ran out and I had to quickly, select random questions. And I think towards the last 2 to 3 questions, I had to do that. And the maybe 2 3 before that I was under time pressure, so I don't know how accurate they went. So yes, my focus on verbal was to start with accuracy, even if the time spent is a little bit high. And I think that also brings me to something that I had learned during the prep, was that don't focus on, like, don't go very rigidly with a time limit for verbal in your mind. Don't go with, I'm gonna give 2 minutes per question and that's it. And if 2 minutes I'm not able to solve, I'll leave it. Please don't go with that mindset. I think you should be a little more flexible, hoping that your next, you never know, right? You might get a next question which is very easy and you're able to solve it in like 30 40 seconds. So then that strategy doesn't work out. So I think it's about going with the flow, not being very rigid about how many questions you want to solve, but just focus on accuracy in the initial part of the exam. So that is my clue, is to just manage time by focusing on accuracy first, and then in the second half you can start worrying a little bit about time and accuracy pressure.
All right. Samantha, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much, Mihir, for answering that.
Mhm.
I also want to ask, what happens sometimes when candidates are preparing, and this is going to happen to everyone, every one of us, everyone who is sitting here. There will be days when your accuracy just dips, especially when you're transitioning from medium level questions to hard questions or from easy to medium. And there will be really low bad days where you might just get 2 questions right out of 10. That might happen. In your preparation, Mihir, were there days when the accuracy went very low and it took you back to that moment when you scored a 595, and there could be negative subconsciousness coming to play saying that, what, my level is 595 and that's why I'm stuck here and it's going to be very difficult to move from here. Maybe this is the moment. Did this kind of thoughts ever come to you? And how did you come over it if they did?
Yeah, yeah, definitely they came, especially after poor mocks. That is the first thing that comes to your mind, is this really worth it? Because, around you there are friends who are enjoying every weekend. They are going to clubs and malls and shopping, and you always feel that, you are missing out, and this study is the reason that you are missing out. So, um, yeah, there was that feeling that, I'm doing so much sacrifice, but is it really worth it? But I mean, my motivation honestly was that, you know hard work is very important to get what you want. And so, the only way that you could score well in GMAT is to put in that time and effort, right? And at the score that I was, it was very unlikely for me to get into a good B school. And I think my motivation to make it to a good MBA college is what kept me going. So remember that you have started this journey to get to a good MBA college, and that's what should drive you on these days. And obviously there was my family that supported me a lot during such times. I used to discuss with my mother that this I gave a mock today and the score was terrible. And then yeah, she used to always have that positive mind of forward looking mindset, that she used to ask, okay, so what were the weak areas, what do you think you did wrongly, did you make a lot of silly mistakes, or did you just or you just didn't know about the question. So that started that clock in your mind where you know that you have to work on certain things to get there, right? So yeah, in your days where you feel demotivated, try to seek some motivation. Remember why you started all of this journey. Remember why you are making these sacrifices that you are. And yeah, hope that everything turns out well. So that's what keeps you going.
I'll extend from that point and ask you for one specific instance, like one instance where you felt like this is it, I don't think GMAT is for me. Then what did you tell yourself specifically? Like, these are the data points I can see for myself, so I have to keep going.
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting question. So I think there was one of the mocks that I gave where I saw that I had a good quant score. It was Q90, and verbal was also good. Things were starting to improve in verbal. They had not taken off that well, and the DI score I think was very terrible, and that's why the mock was I think somewhere 625 or something. That was the score. So that's where I thought that okay, so looks like quant is working out. Verbal is also slowly increasing. So remembering that where you were last time, looking back at where you started from and where you are now, that gives you that hope that okay, maybe you will get better. And I think for data insights, I used to commit talk to you a lot when I used to have a bad mock. And that's where also you said that you see that in me, where you used to make me feel motivated as well at times when I used to say things like, I think I'll just do well in the class questions and I'll not do well in the mock. I remember saying that to you as well, very specifically. And that's where you also gave me that motivation that I have seen the progress that you have made, and you also believed in the efforts and the time that I was giving to all this preparation. And yeah, your words also helped me stay on track.
I'm just glad and privileged to be a part of the journey. But as I noticed your progress, I could only see that you were doing everything that had to be done in the right way. Every single input that I was giving you was taken care of. If you had to sit for 3 hours for test taking, you were sitting for 3 hours for test taking, followed by analysis of the test. So when somebody does this diligently over time, it will show. It will show on the actual GMAT. There's no doubt about it. But many students have asked about test taking stage, which is what we are going to talk about now. Last 2, 3 weeks of your preparation, to be honest. Tell us, what was your section order on the GMAT? Do you remember it? It's been quite some time. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. It was verbal first, then DI. So verbal first, followed by the break of 10 minutes, and then DI and quant. That was my order for the GMAT.
Very good.
So yeah, I wanted to start with verbal so that that is the section where I was most afraid of and was not sure. But at the same time, I wanted my mind to be very fresh, because there's a lot of reading and there's a lot of thinking that you have to do in the verbal section. So that's where I thought that if my mind is fresh, I want to start with verbal, which was the weakest, or let's say most uncertain section for me. Then second thing that was difficult for me, as I mentioned earlier, was DI. So I wanted to take a break so that I am fresh before I again start the DI. So that's why I took the break, and then I took DI, and then I moved on to quant. So yeah, that was my section.
Right, and you came down to this format, verbal first and DI, then quant, after some iterations on the official marks, right? Whatever helped you score the best is what you did stick to.
Yes, there were a couple of things that I tried before that.
That's a very unique, interesting section order because most candidates start either with quant At most, they would start with data insights, but verbal, which is content heavy, followed by data insights, which is MSR, again content heavy, or TPA content heavy. But with the 10 minutes break, that
Right.
really
Yeah.
it balanced it out. That was Arushi's question. Arushi also has some questions on how did you prep when you were at mocks, and some topics that you did were either forgotten or sort of not as good. So basically, official test taking stage is what she's talking about. How many mocks you had taken, and how did you course correct from the mocks, Mihir, if I could refine that question?
Sure. So I think I took there are mock 1 and 2 is something that you get by default on the MBA.com. So I think I might have given the mock 1 or 2 times, and this is from the 595 to 715 journey that I'm talking about right now. So I took those 2 mocks, I think twice, so 4 of them. And I took official mock 3 and 4 also, was something that I bought. So I took 3 and 4 also, I think twice or once. So 3 and 4 together I attempted thrice. Not each, but total 3, and 4 from 1 and 2. So 7 mocks I might have given.
Okay. Many candidates do experience, or most users experience that mock 1, 2 feels a lot more easier as compared to the mock test of 3, 4, 5, 6 pool. Did you also feel like that?
I would say I saw that mock 1 was good, uh, and even when I gave it second time, it was good. But mock 2, I didn't feel was difficult. It was very easy, and I thought it's sort of deceptive to believe in sometimes those scores. For me, that's how it happened. But 3 and 4, yeah, are a good indicator,
Yes.
definitely.
I totally agree. And again, from a mentor's point of view, for everybody who is preparing, see, every official mock test is standardized. But because mock 1 and 2 are free, the questions are also freely available. So many similar questions you might have done. You would not, you might get that sense of familiarity. But 3, 4, 5, 6 just helps you settle down with the assessment and tell you that it's an indicator of you to book the
Right.
job.
Yeah,
Uh,
what I've seen, also I would like to talk about the official mocks on that note again. My score in the last official mock and the 715 GMAT was same. So yeah, it's quite consistent. And even the 595 one, that was my score in my official mock 1 as well.
Yes. So they're very indicative of your preparation, plus minus
Yeah.
20 usually, unless somebody is extremely under stress and anxiety. Mihir, we also, in the test taking stage, we discussed about last 2 weeks being very intense. You have to go
Yes.
repetition of 3 subjects. Some days 3 subjects, some are, and almost every day 2 subjects, and back to back 2.5 to 3 hours of prep. And you did stick to it. How difficult was it? Did you feel like giving up some days? How was test taking stage overall?
Yeah, so you generally start your test taking stage when you know your date of GMAT, right? So yeah, that's when, I made it a priority to sit during that time when my GMAT was scheduled. I think it was at 1 o'clock or something. So I used to sit from that time to practice. While practicing, I think it's very important that during your practice, you do not spend time on searching for questions. Whatever questions you want to practice should be there in like a one. I used to maintain a OneNote of the questions that I want to solve today. I used to put the links to those questions or just copy paste the pictures of those questions. And then I used to start the timer. And that's when I used to go through each of those questions until the end of the timer. So it was, I think I used to set a 2.5 hour timer because I think, yeah, it's a little difficult, but that is the habit that you have to develop because eventually you are going to face a 2.5 hour exam. I know the 10-minute break is a good, it's like a breather, but it gets over very quickly. You come out and because you have to check in with the administrator and you have already lost 2 minutes, and then you want to log in at least 2 minutes before, right? And there's no electronic clock, there's that analog clock in my where I gave it at least. So I was not sure and I forgot the time that I came out. So it was a little bit scary to rely on that break. So it was good that I trained myself for a 2.5 3 hour. So I think it is very important that you sit through and stretch yourself. I also think that when you sit for long hours, you develop a kind of a proficiency in that subject, which you cannot if you just sit in like 30 minute windows, right? In 30-minute windows, sometimes you're hardly able to solve 2 3 questions, right? Because we look at the solution, we look at different ways of solving it. But when you sit for long hours, I think you develop that skill and proficiency, where your mind is constantly thinking about those things. You get find some new ways or some new clues by which you can attempt similar questions. So it is very important that you stick to it. Yeah, and on weekends I used to have like two such sprints of 2.5 to 3 hours each. So yeah, every day giving that one sprint is important in your last phase.
So this is the rigor one has to go through when you're in the test taking stage, a minimum of 3 hours in the test taking stage where you have to expose yourself to constant official practice, context switching, time management, everything that simulates GMAT and more. Worst case scenarios, he had fixed up so many worst case scenarios. Like, what if my GMAT starts with a non-math MSR followed by non-math TPA? And I know Mihir has practiced that rigorously for everything. One interesting question, important question, in fact, by Anusha is she's congratulated you and wanted to know how you handled stress and anxiety during the test anxiety part. And this is particularly a challenging area, not just for Anusha, but also I'm sure for a lot of them, almost everybody, even the high scorers would feel like that when they are preparing for the test or when they are on the test.
Yeah.
She feels it often brings her score down.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think many people face it for many exams. I think it's very common having this exam day anxiety. So, meditation helps. If you can try out a meditation, there are a lot of apps, Headspace, Calm, and all. I used to do like a just 10-minute meditation. I think I did it before, I did it when I sat in my cab to go to the exam hall. That's when I did that meditation. And I also did it in those 2 weeks. I tried to give 10 minutes to that daily. So it's very important in an exam like GMAT that you have to be in the present moment all the time. When you are anxious, you are thinking about what's going to happen, especially in the last section when I hit the enter, what is going to be the score, right? That's where your anxiety is at peak. That's also why I wanted Quant to be there, because that is something I can handle even during anxiety. So yeah, it's very important to be grounded throughout your examination experience. So meditation helps. Anusha, I think you can download an app, maybe just spend like a 10-minute habit. Is very easy to develop, right? 10 minutes you can do anytime, even before bed also. I have done it sometimes. If I didn't find time in the day, I did it at night. So a 10-minute focus meditation is good for you, and that helped relieve the stress. The other tip that I can give for D-Day is that I solved few easy verbal critical reasoning questions, and I read one RC. Didn't solve the questions, but I just read the RC and made the mind map before leaving for the exam, because verbal was the first section that I was going to do, and so I didn't want to unlock my mind over there. I wanted it to be prepared for what it's going to face before, in the day. And then you go to the exam, and that's where you get to that speed and accuracy fast that you have practiced. Initial few questions that you might make wrong, you want those mistakes to happen at home, and where it's not consequential. So that's my tip for D-Day.
Yes, warm up is super important for the GMAT, for any official mom that you take. If you have any other questions, guys, you can put it in the chat box while I talk to him, and I'll pick your questions up because we are reaching the end of this meeting, so you can give your questions. Just a second. How important were sectional mocks for you? This is by Arushi. Did you focus a lot on these?
Okay. I did not give any sectional mock, honestly. To but in my study sprints that we spoke about, if it was a 2.5 hour or somewhat around that, it was a sprint. So I used to keep 22 questions of each section ready, right? And that was like maybe that was the closest to a sectional mock that I have been during my preparation. But I did not focus on any sectional mock. It was just the official ones and the study sprint that I went through.
Right. Is there something on your GMAT prep, Mihir, that you felt important at that time? Just one thing which you felt important that time, but now when you look back, you just think it was unnecessary or a wastage or could have been avoided.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the MSR example for that. I was obviously worried because MSR had spoiled one or two mocks of mine, and I was very stressed that it's going to happen on the D day as well. But I in that panic, I ended up spending a lot of time solving those hard level MSR questions. I think the 805 level, 705 plus level. So it became very tiring and taxing for the mind. And honestly, sometimes what you see in the exam is very different from what your perception of that topic is. So it's important to keep an open mind, believe in your preparation, and don't spend unnecessary time. So MSR difficult questions was one of the things that I shouldn't have panicked much and spend my energy on.
Thank you so much for saying that, Mihir. Rishabh has said, ma'am, do we have Mihir's right versus wrong chart for each section? No, Rishabh, we don't have that now, but that's a good point. We'd like to create something after this discussion, and then we will share it. We also have another question by Sarthak. Approximately what weeks before exam you did such intense practice, and when did you book the exam? This is
Yeah.
by.
Sure. So, yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I did that 12 to 14 days. So, 2 weeks before your exam, you have to go in that, intense preparation phase. And that's that just to train your mind. And it's better to do it if you have longer, if you know that your exam is in 3 weeks, then get into that mode for 3 weeks as well. You might score a lot with that.
It's very intense. So 2 to 3 weeks is all that you should do.
Yeah, yeah, even 2 weeks is fine. But yeah, and do give your mind the break after one sprint. Go out, go to wherever. Like I like to go to the gym, so I used to go to the gym. That used to relieve a lot of stress before you sat for another 3 hours. Okay, so do something where your mind is fresh and free to get into this grind again.
Right. Absolutely. There was another question. How did you decide? This is by Sanyukta. How did you decide you were ready to book the test? Was it based on your mock test scores?
Right. Yeah. I think ma'am's recommendation of, because, when you give mocks, and I think that's what I learned at CV as well, that your score improves, and it reaches a very good threshold, peak, right? And that's when you know that you have to book the exam immediately so that you are in the same pace of preparation and you can quickly give it and score the best of your ability, right? So identifying that you are close to the peak was very important. As soon as I found out that my mock was 715 was one score in one of my mocks, it's when I also told ma'am, and I immediately booked the slot for my GMAT. So once you reach your target score, you can book the mock. Sorry, so you reach your target score in the mock, you can book the exam. Sorry.
Okay. So have consistent target scores achieved for at least by mock 3, 4, 5, 6, one of them or two of them, and then book the GMAT, which is what Mihir did. Then Kumar Rishabh has asked home or test center, which one did you take?
Oh, it was test center based. Because I think, yeah, ISB accepts only test center based course.
That's an important input. ISB will accept only test center based GMAT. IEMs also will accept only test center based GMAT. So test center based GMAT is always safer to give. Also, the
Yeah,
load of organizing the test is not on you if you're on test center.
sure, sure.
Darshan says, has asked how to keep the consistency even on the day when you're occupied by work. And yeah, this input will really help Darshan because he's also trying to manage work and prep the day
Yeah,
of.
okay. So yeah, I think I have an answer for that when, work got very demanding on some days, and that's where I could not give the 3 hour. It was as simple. It was impossible to give those 3 hours. But what I did is that before going to the office, I tried to give at least 1.5 hour, maybe by waking up a little bit early, or maybe not skipping the gym that day, or skipping some other activity that is probably dispensable for one day. So you just skip that one activity, and focus that day on your weakest area so that that area doesn't get affected. You don't want to take a break for the area to which you are weakest, right? So, yeah, on the day where you are not able to give time, give at least half an hour or 1 hour, not three, to the weakest area that you have.
So for this attempt of yours, Mihir, what is the maximum stretch of break time that you had? 24 hours, 48 hours? Like, इससे ज़्यादा you have not taken a break.
Break hours, okay, in the preparation.
Break in the prep, maximum was for?
Um, I think it was just that one trip that I had to go to. There was like 4 or 5 days were spent in that, but that was in very early in my preparation. But luckily, after that, there might have been just 1 or 2 days where maybe I was sick for a while or something. That's where I focused on recovery more. So it could have been just 24 to 48 hours, not more than that.
That's the input I was trying to extract. 24 to 48 hours is the maximum. Don't go beyond that when it comes down to taking a
Yeah,
break between the prep days.
yeah.
Mm, last question around it. So many a candidate, especially now because of the volatile economic situations, geopolitics, they are still figuring out on Reddit, on LinkedIn, is MBA worth it? Is the salary going to be covering the cost that I'm going to invest? Did all those thoughts also come to you? Were you also checking on Reddit and social media forums, trying to connect with people when you started preparing?
Yeah, yeah. I think yes, it's a tendency to, look at the average package of the college that you're going and try to see if, you're really going to get there where you want to, right? And that's a good thing. But on the other hand, I think when my thought process was that, I want to do an MBA to accelerate in the career, and payment is an aspect, but the other thing that an MBA degree gives you is that ability to, move a little, get a push into your career into a little bit higher positions, or even, you can change the domain that you are currently working in, the industry that you are currently working in. That is the chance that MBA gives you. And for that, definitely, my motivation was to pursue an MBA. Now, coming to the fact that, whether I doubted about the average placements and everything. So I would suggest that, that's why I had tier 1B schools as my target. I think they would soften the blow, if at all anything happens, they will absorb some impact, and maybe to some extent you will get the hit. But, saying that my return on investment is going to be just the package that I get after leaving the B school, divided by the amount I spent, that is not a good way, I think, to measure. It's very short-sighted. 10-15 years down the line is where, you are going to really start seeing the difference of someone who pursued an MBA at this point and someone who didn't. I mean, so if and it's fine even if you have some different career idea in your mind. But yeah, so I think it's important to, if you want to pursue an MBA and want that career acceleration, then targeting a tier 1B school can soften this blow.
I totally agree on this. So, as also I think on Reddit and on all these forums, people who have a lot of trauma response, like negative response, I think, would come up more than those who are actually benefiting. Uh,
Right.
And it
Yeah.
takes a bit
It's
of.
like in Zomato you see a restaurant is very highly rated, but you open the comments, you'll see all bad comments, right? Because those who have had bad experience have a stronger tendency to open the app and type in the comment, right? So it's important that you are getting the your information about, from where you want to do an MBA from a very credible source.
Mm.
It should match the opportunities that the B school can provide and what you want in your career. It is important that they match.
Yes. And did you apply to any other college apart from ISB, or were you thinking nothing but ISB itself?
So ISB was the focus, and there was one college that I thought I could apply was with GMAT was SP Jain as well.
Mm.
So yeah, these were the two options. But yeah, I got in through R1 on ISB, and so I didn't pursue the other option. But
Makes
yeah,
sense.
for round one, the focus was only ISB.
Totally makes sense. So, to all our students who are connected with us right now on YouTube or on Zoom webinar now, they all have different struggles, different worries, different stages of prep, but somehow down the line, ambition stays same, aspirations stay same, and they
Yeah.
might be stuck at a score. They might be trying to juggle work and prep, test anxiety and whatnot. But if you had to give them one line which can help them continue their preparation without this kind of break with consistency, what would be that message?
No, I think, as I said earlier, right? Remember why you started and, keep your target in mind. And that target would be your GMAT score that you want at the end of this preparation phase, right? So that should be your target, right? And try to, it's okay to do some sacrifice, right? Just stay motivated and work to achieve your goal. I think that is very important, to not slack off, and definitely you will feel demotivated, but it's important to give your best shot, to get a score that you can say, okay, yeah, this is one of the best of my ability, this is to the best of my ability. So it's important you feel that satisfaction when you have given your GMAT.
Thank you so much, Mihir. Thank you so much. Um,
And I had one question for you. So, there were some tough days as well in my preparation, and I used to, bother you a lot that, what's going to happen and all, whether I'll be able to get it or whether I'll be able to even, get a good score. 675 even was a doubt at a point in my preparation. So, what did you feel about me and the way I was trying with GMAT?
I was always certain that we'll make it. And you know that I was always saying that you were thinking with for a number starting with six. I was always clear about a number starting with seven, a GMAT score starting with seven. Because everything that has to be done, you were doing it exactly as it is, and you were course correcting constantly. So these two things matter. Are you doing what needs to be done in the right direction consistently? If the answer is a yes, it will be reflected on the GPAT. So I never doubted you. In fact, I always knew that you will get deep in my heart something above starting with the digit 7 is the score that will be reflected.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that's the motivation that you gave me also that kept me going in those difficult days.
glad I could be a part of it. Any other questions, guys? We're going to close the meeting. I think we've answered so many questions that you had asked to me here. And I want to thank all of you to have taken out your time to be listening to us, and that too on Saturday evening. Saturday
Yeah.
evening, you're listening to us. Amazing. That only shows how serious you have been in the prep, and
Yeah.
that you also want to succeed like him and be an example for yourself for the next version of you. That I could do this. I can do this as well. Whenever you get a bigger challenge in life. But Mihir, thank you so much. I want to wish you the best. Now you're going onwards and upwards for a new journey. Version, what do I say, 3.0? Because 2.0 was when he scored a 715.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
of
to you and that too for
I'm
the
sure.
version 2.0. So thanks, ma'am, and it's been really great, getting the mentorship from you, and it is, very helpful to have the right mentor, where you can, ask your feedback very freely and talk and discuss your challenges. It is very important to have that mentorship and the right mentor. So thanks for being that during my preparation journey.
Thank you.
And lastly, I think I would like to wish all the best to everyone, each and everyone on this call. And yeah, really hope you get the score that you want.
Yes, I hope. Thank you so much, Mihir, for mentioning that. And I'm just so glad and happy to be a part of the journey. Our students, they're all very smart. They just have to be consistent. Her
Ye-
दिन we keep on telling on WhatsApp, 1 hour you have to prep, 1 hour you have to prep. And they're all getting consistent now. Those who are not, they are also hopefully coming on track.
Yes, great.
I'm glad, Darshan, that helped you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to all of you. Thank you so much, Mihir. Wishing you the best in life for everything that you do. Thank you.
thank you, man. Thanks, everyone. Bye.